Welcome to another edition of A Voice to the Gentile Church. I'm Jim Wingirter. Across from me is Pastor Roger Diaz. We are welcoming today our friends from Israel, Yonaton Behar from the community of Har Bracha, and his son Josh Behar. Glad to have you with us today.
Thank you for having us, and we're very happy to be here.
Wonderful. So I understand that, Josh, you just returned from Gaza. Is that true?
Yeah, that's true. After 3 months of fighting the Hamas, I have been in the military reserve for 3 months, and I finished my duty.
So you were on the front line?
Yeah, I was inside of Gaza, in north of Gaza. It's called Jabalia, on the area of Jabalia. So, It was quite long because in the beginning I was in the kibbutzim near Gaza and for a week and a half, something like that, and only after we got in Gaza.
So many of the kibbutzim just east of the Gaza line, they're out of commission right now. Are the Israelis preparing to bring them back online? I know it's not going to be soon, but is there a plan to reestablish those kibbutzim?
There are a lot of people who want to return, and there are people who have already returned, but it's going to take a long time. There was so much destruction by the Hamas terrorists that it's to rebuild and to refurbish everything. It's going to take a while. But there is people definitely want to go back to their homes.
That's the Israeli attitude.
Yes,
that's wonderful. That's
yes.
wonderful. Presents a lot of hope for the future. So tell me about your experience. You don't have to get in depth. What was it like facing the murderous terrorists of Hamas? And how do you feel? I guess I should ask this. How do you feel about the world government and the world system, our country, the United States of America, referring to Gaza as some sort of a political movement when we know they're not a political movement?
Yeah.
Because you fought them yourself, so you understand them more than anyone else.
Yes. So first of all, like everybody in Israel, on the 7th of October, I woke up and my wife told me that something going on, something terrible, and she don't know what exactly, but many of Hamas terrorists got into Israel. So I woke up and took my stuff, my army stuff, and waited a little bit to hear from my unit. And something like an hour or 2 hours after, all the attack began, I got it's called 8 Tzav 8. It's
emergency
call up, to the military reserve. So I drove south of Israel to my base. We got there very fast, took our equipment, all our vests and guns, and went to the kibbutzim, trying to fight the Hamas terrorists that got in. It was a mess in the beginning because there was so many terrorists in so many places and they drove into the cities and the kibbutzim and it was really hard to focus where you're going to protect or which one you're going to fight and whatever. So we've been there for a week fighting the terrorists that got into to Israel. And after we did, we started to kind of clean up the area. So we needed to search for survivor and also search for bodies and stuff like that. So we also got into the kibbutzim and found all the hard images in the kibbutzim. So we did it also for a few days. After 2 weeks, something like that, the operation in Gaza started. And they took us also to be part of the brigade that came from the north into Gaza. So we have been in all the north for something like 2 months. In Jabalia, it's called Bet Lahia, Tel Atatra. It's kind of all the area of the north. And we have been there and we did a great job. We destroyed many of tunnels and many of houses of terrorists, and we killed even a lot of Hamas terrorists that were involved in 7 of October
So
attack.
18 of the 24 brigades, the Hamas brigades, were eliminated, right?
Yeah.
Which
yeah.
is tremendous. I think the world media isn't, well, of course, they're not going to give credit to Israel in that regard, but ultimately, history will treat this war rightly, which is Israel has done an incredible thing in a very short space of time to alleviate 18 brigades and to neutralize Hamas in this short space of time without excessive civilian casualties. It's tremendous.
Yeah. Also, when you looking on the numbers of the Hamas is telling that 30,000 people died in Gaza, maybe, but according to the Israeli number, also 10,000 of terrorists have been killed. So the ratio of 3 to 1 in such a hard area to fight, it's also something incredible. I don't think that in history there ever have been such a good numbers in a war. So
excellent. So I want to ask you, Yonaton, concerning the war in Gaza, the whole affair, the incredible thing that happened. The initial fighters that came in were specially trained Hamas operators. They came and did what, and then following them, a lot of civilians came in.
Yes.
And they did most of the real damage, the rape and the murder. And they came from the so-called civilians who were functioning as operators.
Right.
So many of those civilians died. And now the United Nations and all of the forces of the world are now saying, well, 30,000 Gazans died. 20,000 were operators, were Hamas, and some of the 10,000 were people who jumped into the fray, right?
Right, exactly.
So how do you feel about the media and their awful treatment of this whole thing?
The media is extremely leftist, and they're depicting what's going on in Gaza in a terrible light, very anti-Semitic light, anti-Israel. Like my son said, the ratio was extremely low, and I don't think it was in any war that it was that low. And the truth is that the majority of people in Gaza are affiliated in one way or another with Hamas. My son and his army unit, almost every house that they went into, they found guns, ammunition, pictures of what they call the shahedim, the martyrs who murdered Israelis. And the media, it's just terrible, but we're used to it. The media never portrays Israel in a positive light. So we're doing our best to get the word out, the truth out, and
I heard a testimony of a survivor who said that they were locked away in their safe room, but they were hearing some of the second wave, the civilians that came in, they were hearing the conversation over the phone, and they understood a little Arabic. And these murderers, these animals, were calling their parents,
right,
and celebrating that they've beheaded.
That's a very, very
Israelis.
Very famous thing in the media that actually they showed one of the Arab terrorists calling his mother and saying, "Mother, I've killed 10 Israelis."
And beheaded 4.
And they were jubilating and they were happy and everything. And like you said, it's the populace, the regular people in Gaza also who took part in the massacre themselves. Mm-hmm. We saw, videos from the kibbutzim security cameras, and you see young children, you see men on crutches, you see just plundering and going into all of the different kibbutzim and killing and.
Yeah, I also, one of our mission before we got into Gaza, it was to go to Nir Oz. Nir Oz, it's one of the kibbutzim that suffered really from the terror. A lot of houses have been burdened with the people inside, and half the kibbutz were taken into Gaza, and half have been killed, and a lot of people have been killed from the kibbutz. So we went there, and from the gate of the kibbutz to Gaza, all the road, there was so many stuff that they tried to get from the kibbutz. If it's tractors, and they took trash cans and put everything inside and trying to get it into Gaza. That's after they killed all the people.
Yeah, they looted everything that they killed.
So, and we found there many of bodies, something like 53 bodies. mostly of the terrorists that the army able to kill, but I assume that were also a few civilians there, Israeli civilians. When you see that with your eyes, you understand how much the hate that they have and what they're trying to do. It's just to kill people.
Before I started going to Israel, I did have a passion for Israel before I got there, but I never fully understood the reality of Israel, the relationships that you have with the so-called Palestinians, with the Arabs, until I got there and began to witness it and experience it myself. And in a very real way, no one can understand what happened in Gaza unless they've experienced, for instance, what you experienced.
Yeah.
So tell me about your, I don't want to get too deep into this, but how do you feel now, having been with an army that has conquered 18 battalions? Do you have a sense of, you've accomplished something, you've won a victory, and is that something that the Israeli soldiers are knowing right now?
Yeah, I think that it's two different feeling. Mm-hmm. When you are inside, you're feeling that you are fighting, that you are winning. Yeah, anger. You also but you're feeling that you are winning because we did such a good job inside. So we were proud on the war that we did. But when you're going outside and you hear all the media, you understand that they're trying to show it in a different way. Yeah. But it was tough inside. I also lost two of my best friends in Gaza, and even before, I lost a lot of friends that were involved in the war in a kind of a combats here outside of the Gaza and also inside of Gaza Strip. It's hard. Also, my friends, one had 3 children, the second one had 4 children. So
I'm going to ask you one more question because I don't want to put too much focus on you're fresh out of a war. How do you feel about the prospect of Bibi Netanyahu and the Knesset, the political order in Israel, looking for some sort of a peace bargain with Hamas? Or do you, someone who fought in the war, do you see that Hamas needs to be completely destroyed and Gaza needs to be completely given over to Israel? What do you think?
Yeah. For sure, we need to finish the job that we started. So we need to get into Rafiah. We need to get into to finish Khan Yunis, the job that we started in Khan Yunis. I'm willing to get back to the reserve anytime they will call me because I really think that we need to do that. Yeah. And if we will not do that, it's going to be bad because the Hamas will come back. And
the future
will be bad, and also we have still 136 something like that hostages inside of Gaza. Yeah. It's crazy.
We tend to
crazy.
Forget that. Yeah.
When we had one hostages, we tried to do anything to get him outside from Gaza. And now when we have 136, I think that we need to eliminate the Hamas and do it.
I agree.
We were very concerned, especially the community of Kedemim, but everybody who's in the Shomron, that the local Arabs in those communities would rise up at the same time while half of your communities off in Gaza.
Right. More than half. 25% in my community were in military reserve.
Yeah. You're in a younger community, right? Great. Yeah. I got a question for you, Yonaton. Yonaton. Yes. I want to call you Jonathan. Yonaton. All right, so we're hearing a lot about some sort of a consorted, coordinated effort on the part of the so-called Palestinians in the West Bank coming up to Ramadan. There's a lot of talk, a lot of static about some sort of a holy ooze, an overflow of the repeat of what happened in Gaza to the communities in the Shomron, in Kone Shomron, in Ariel, in your community. Right. Is the Israeli government and are the communities prepared for anything like that? Ramadan is on the 10th, right, which is a few days away, 4 days away.
I have to tell you, I've been living in Har Bracha for some 30 some odd years, and every Ramadan we hear the same story, that the Arabs are going to riot and they're going to do terrorist attacks and whatever, and we're always prepared at all times, not only in Ramadan, but throughout the entire year. especially after the Simchat Torah massacre,
Yeah.
our security forces have been reinforced.
Absolutely.
We have 70 men from my community of 450 families who are doing security work within the community itself, 24/7. And, you know, the Arabs constantly say that they're going to Day of Rage and Ramadan and whatever. And unfortunately, sometimes our government isn't strong enough. But we're ready. We're ready for anything. And
good. So 2 days ago, the head of the serpent, you guys crushed the tail of the serpent, right? Gaza. The body of the serpent, I believe, is Hezbollah. The head of the serpent is Iran. So 2 days ago, the head of the serpent said to the people in the West Bank, in Jenin and in Ramallah and in Nablus, that for Ramadan you should jihad.
right.
That was 2 days ago. Iran said that. So
Right.
you think Bibi Netanyahu, Israel, you think the military is taking that seriously?
Oh, for sure. No question about it. The Army is definitely ready and positioned for anything, God forbid, that happens. I just want to make an appointment that within Judea and Samaria, within what the Arabs and the media call the West Bank, the majority of people, the majority of Arabs are pro-Hamas. I've heard in the media a lot of people say, well, Hamas was in Gaza, but they're not in the West Bank. They're not in Judea and Samaria. And that is not true at all.
Right.
Yeah.
There's been a survey, and 90% of the Arabs in Judea and Samaria said they are pro-Hamas. They want the Hamas in power, not the PLO.
Yeah.
More than in Gaza.
More than in Gaza.
70%. Something like that. It wasn't in Jerusalem. It was
So
even more.
that's one thing that's a fact that must be put on the table, and everybody must know that there is Hamas within Judea and Samaria, and they also must be eliminated.
Absolutely. So I think the Simchat Torah attack was horrible. I mean, Israel will recover from this, but it won't be easy. But it also provides for the communities in the Shomron and for the Israeli government to be more ready, more prepared for something like that happening, because they're already saying that something like that is going to happen. It's going to be bloody when it happens, but I'm convinced Israel will prevail.
Right.
I'm convinced of it.
Oh, for sure. No question about it.
Another factor is this. In Gaza, it was easy to smuggle weapons in. In the so-called West Bank, it's not that easy.
Exactly. And the reason it's not easy is because of the communities in Judea and Samaria, like Har Bracha, like Kedumim, like Ilan Moreh. In our area, we live in an area of the Shomron, Samaria mountain range, which has 5 communities: Tapuach, Yitzhar, Har Bracha, Itamar, and Ilan Moreh. We're approximately 10,000 residents altogether.
Right.
And we're sitting in the center of the country. We're sitting on top of Shechem, what the Arabs call Nablus, which is a hotbed of Arab terrorism.
Yeah.
And we're sitting like a bone in the throat. They call us, the police. The peace, is there's no peace because of us. We're an obstacle to peace.
In
That's
English,
what they call us.
You're flying the ointment in English.
Yes.
That's a saying.
Obstacle to peace, right. And that's really the reason that in Judea and Samaria, haven't been uprisings yet, because the army is there, there are Jewish communities there, and that's why it's so important for us to continue building and growing and having more Jews come. We're hoping for 1 million Jews to live in Judea and Samaria. Right now we're about 600,000.
Yeah.
And then there'll be more security. The more Jews that are living in a certain area, the more security it is. Yeah. In Tel Aviv, when Tel Aviv was first established, there were also Arab uprisings. But more people moved to Tel Aviv. It became a gigantic city. And now there's no terrorism in Tel Aviv. Unfortunately, in our area, there aren't enough Jewish residents. And we're hoping for more, and we're hoping for 1 million people to come and live. And then there'll be security, not only for Israel, but for the entire world, because what goes in Israel is going to be for the entire world as well.
Of course. Wow. So Har Bracha, the community Har Bracha among Gerizim, Gerizim, right?
Mount Gerizim.
That's the biblical site.
Right.
And right next to it is, of course, Mount Ebal.
Right.
So the community that's at the top of Gerizim Is it growing? The Jewish community, is it growing?
Yes, we are growing. We have about, as I said, 450 families.
Wow.
We have.
That's almost as large as Kedumim.
It's almost as large as Kedumim.
Yeah.
But Kedumim is a little bit older than our community,
Right.
so they, they have a little bit more residents. But we're the largest community within Gava Har, the 5 communities that I just told you.
Right.
And we are constantly, young families are coming to live.
Excellent.
We have a Hezder Yeshiva,
Yeah.
where the boys go into a program, a 5-year program,
Right.
where they learn 1 year in yeshiva, and they serve in the army for a year, and they're back and forth. And after they're finished with their 5-year program, they fall in love with the community, and they decide to get married and build their houses. That's our main source
Excellent.
for new
That's
families.
awesome.
That's incredible. You know, we were incredibly blessed to work with the community at Kedumim. And since 2007, we've been building a park, Hasterim, the park there at Kedumim. And for us, it's such an honor for us to be able to go there, work in this park, and begin to see new families moving in around the park.
Right.
So when we first got there in 2007 and started put our hands in the soil, started digging and moving stones, there were very few houses around, very few, and some of the houses were older houses. What we've seen is since 2007 is there's at least 100 new houses that are all, moving forward from the park, headed towards Shechem.
Right.
So to us, that's such a tremendous, tremendous blessing. And a lot of the young families are coming there because of the park. So for us to be able to have a part in this, even a small part,
Right.
it's like we're involved in the Geulah. We're blessed among all the nations to be involved in the Geulah.
I'll say our holy and wise sages taught us that there are 613 mitzvot, commandments in the Torah. And they said if you took 612 and put them on one side of a scale, and you took one commandment, one mitzvah, and put it on the other, the scales would be even. And that one commandment is the settling of the land of Israel. And anybody who takes part in settling of the land of Israel will definitely be blessed by the God of Israel. There's no question about it.
Amen. So tell me a little bit about, this might be off topic a little bit, but it is related. What about the Samaritans that are at the top of Har Bracha? How do they relate to the conflict with Gaza?
It's a good question. I don't have that much contact with them.
Yeah.
They do come into our community to use the medical services and shop in this grocery store. They're in a very difficult situation. On the one hand, they're Arabs, and a lot of them used to work in Shechem, or they still do. And on the other hand, they're close to our community of Har Bracha.
Also Israeli citizens
And they're also Israeli citizens. Some of them live in Cholon during certain months of the year, and they come and live in Har Gerizim during certain months of the year. I just remember once, many years ago, going to one of the houses in the Samaritan village, and they had a picture up of Arafat, and they also had a picture of the president or the prime minister of Israel. So they're trying to play both part,
They're straddling the fence.
Exactly,
Yeah,
straddling the fence.
Yeah.
But when they're voting,
When they're voting, they vote for the Likud party. They vote for...
They go for the
Yes,
Likud.
they have a very, very long heritage of voting for the Likud.
about
Going
that?
back to Ariel Sharon when he was in the Likud, and
They know who's taking care of them.
right, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
For our Christian listeners, we're actually speaking about the Samaritans of the New Testament period, who does exist on the same mountain that Yonatan's community is on, Har Bracha, Mount Gerizim. So there are still Samaritans that are there today.
It's not. I'd say probably about maybe 300 families or
500
something.
something,
500 families. Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit about the situation in the north with Hezbollah. We know that last night they lobbed a bunch of missiles into the north, and the Iron Dome shut down all of them. How do we feel about that? What's the sense that the military has concerning what's happening with Hezbollah?
in my opinion, it's something that should not happen. What the situation that we have today in Israel. Many of Israeli citizens are evacuated from the north, and staying in hotels and in any place in Israel, but they can go back to the north. Maybe I think it's over 100,000 people. I think that the army must do also an operation in the north in order to let people get back to their homes and land and get back to normal life. And until it will not happen, I don't think that a citizen will be able to go back.
Of course, yeah. Do you see the situation with Hezbollah growing into a much bigger campaign?
That's a good question, but again, it's also a different deal than Gaza. It's a real military. They have a lot of weapons and missiles and whatever. They're getting everything from Iran, and they can get it directly into Lebanon. So I think it's going to be something in a different scale. Yeah. But I think that we must also do the operation also there and also hit hard the Hezbollah.
So from the attack last night, all of the missiles were shot down by the Iron Dome, and then Israel went after the place from where they came and obliterated where the missiles came from. I think Israeli intelligence, they know where most of those places are.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
When we went,
you think some of those sites are hidden and
everything hidden. Also in Gaza, almost every house that we went into, in the garden they had missile launchers.
Yeah.
Down in the ground. You didn't see it even. Only like a small thing that coming outside. Normal house, normal garden, and missiles in the garden. So I don't think so. I don't think that in the north they know where every missile launcher or
in every house.
Yeah, it's really hard to find it. You must go house and search and find this stuff, and also the tunnels are the same. So it's really difficult just to bomb from the air and expect to eliminate the Hezbollah. It's not going to happen.
Yes. So ultimately, and no one's looking forward to this, but ultimately, Israel is going to have to deal with the head of the serpent, who is Iran.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yeah.
You've dealt with the tail, now you got to turn to the head. So, Yonaton, what would you say to Christians who are being swayed by the media? Unfortunately, there are many Christians who, under normal circumstances, and we don't know what normal circumstances are, but would normally support Israel. Mm-hmm. And perhaps they were marginal and they were just doing it because it was the thing to do. Many of those Christians have turned against Israel because of the media. What would you say to Christians who are on the fence about, should I support what's happening in Israel? Should I turn against it? What would you say to people like that? Well, that's a big question. But
obviously, you have to support Israel because we're the good guys. Mm-hmm. We're representing good, and the Hamas and the Arab terrorists are evil. Now, I'm sure the Christians want to be on the good side, so they would have to support Israel. The media, as I said, the leftist media, not only in CNN and wherever, but in Israel itself, unfortunately, is very, very, very negative, very leftist, and I would just say that people have to really do a little research and not accept everything that the media says, because the majority of what the media is saying are lies. Mm-hmm. It's not true.
It's an amazing thing that's happened.
And you have to really know where you're getting your news from if you really want the truth. Mm-hmm. There's a number of Israeli outlets, news outlets, like Arutz Sheva, where you can get true media coverage of what's going on in Israel. And I would just tell people to search out media outlets like Arutz Sheva, and that's you'll get the truth. Yeah.
You need to understand that it always will be a not fair in the media. The amount of Muslim in the world, it's 1.5 billion or something like that, and the Jewish, compared to that, it's very small.
And the Arab, they have the gold, and media outlets can be bought and purchased. So we have a lot of that going on.
Al Jazeera, they're doing terrible.
Yeah, but it's not only Al Jazeera; it's also a lot of extreme Muslims that living also in the in countries like England and Germany and even here in the States. So they're also,
powerful. They're powerful.
Yeah.
They have a lot of resources, and they are very influential, even with American politics. When you look at American politics on a broad plane, you see clearly that Arab money, Muslim dollars, have come in and has purchased some of the opinions. It's happening. It's unfortunately, that's just the way we're going.
So they're pushing the narrative, the Palestinian
Yeah,
narrative.
of course. They protect. It's amazing that they protect the Palestinians. The United Nations said about 3 weeks ago that the Hamas is a political movement.
That's
Bizarre,
crazy,
right?
Yeah.
Terrible, terrible.
And that's the United Nations. They speak on behalf of all the nations. So,
Except Israel.
right. So I want to bring the Bible to light a little bit. In Ezekiel chapter 36, we see very clearly, and I know that you're a Bible guy, you're a Bible scholar. We see very clearly that God would restore the people and the land in two phases. He will restore the land in preparation for the people, and later on in the chapter, he brings the people back. Now, I've been having a lot of debates with Christians, a lot, heavy debates. And they talk about how, the Israel of today is not the Israel of God. It's not truly Israel, because look at this. They have all sorts of ungodly things happening in Tel Aviv and Yerushalayim. They couldn't be the Israel of God. And I don't let them get away with that statement. I take them on. So what I would tell them is, I would tell them in Ezekiel chapter 36, it's very vivid. God said that he would restore the land. God speaks to the land. And he tells the land to be ready. My people, they're coming. And God referred to the land and the people as his nakalah, his inheritance, right? And then he says, I will bring them back unclean. And then pour out, cleansing upon them.
Right.
And then they will all receive his spirit, and they will all know him from the least to the greatest, and I will be their God and they will be my people.
Right.
And Ezekiel chapter 36 makes that so clear. So I say to Christians who are struggling with Israel and the idea that Israel is not Israel, the arguments are bizarre, but I take them on. And I tell them that God stated that he will prepare the land, bring them back as they are from the nations, and work with them in the land. Mm-hmm. So do you see, as a result of Gaza, a unifying of Israel becoming more so a people who are cleansed, with faith? Do you see a lot more faith with the people of Israel?
I do see a lot of people, because of what happened on Simchat Torah, the massacre.
Right.
People are starting to wake up,
Right.
and a lot of them want to come back to their roots.
Right.
We see a lot of people, a lot of young men now putting on phylacteries to fill in and wearing tzitzit. And I think it's a slow, progress.
Right.
But it definitely, I see it happening.
So liat, it's happening.
Right.
It's happening.
The biggest
Excuse me.
miracle
The
that
United-
God brought the Jewish nation back after being 2,000 years in exile, the returning of the Jewish nation to the land of Israel is a miracle. It's a miracle. We're fulfilling the prophets, basically, what we're doing by settling the land of Israel and coming back, making Aliyah, Jews coming to live in Israel. And the more Jews that come, the more the redemption, the Geulah process will continue on. And we're looking for much better days ahead of us.
So could we see the 10-7 affair as part of that process that will ultimately usher in the Geulah?
No question about it. In my mind, there's no question about it. God doesn't do anything by accident, by coincidence. And if this happened, first and foremost, my rabbi, Rabbi Eliezer Melamed, who was the rabbi of our community, he said that it was not by coincidence that the massacre took place on Simchat Torah. Simchat Torah means the happiness of the Torah. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's the holiday where we dance. We celebrate with the Torah scrolls and we dance. We need to have more simcha, more happiness in our Torah learning and our Torah life, and that's basically what we're trying to do. Our rabbi just wrote a book called Jewish Tradition,
Right.
and we just translated it into English. It just came off the presses about a week ago, and he writes tremendously beautiful things about Jewish tradition, Jewish law, Jewish philosophy, just on interpersonal commandments and the value of human life, justice, charity, the land of Israel, the mitzvah of settling the land of Israel. If you don't mind, I'd just like to read
Please, yeah.
the mitzvah of settling the land. We have seen that monotheism, Torah and mitzvot, are best put into practice when the Jewish people are living in the land of Israel. Hence, the great value assigned to the mitzvah, the commandment of settling the land. The sages go so far as to tell us that living in the land is equivalent to keeping all of the mitzvot of the Torah. Included in this mitzvah is Jewish settlement and Jewish sovereignty. The land may not be left desolate or in the hands of another nation. As it says, "And you shall take possession of the land and settle in it, for I have assigned the land to you to possess. You shall divide up the land," and so forth. That's in the book of Numbers. Since the land is holy and there is a mitzvah to settle it, anyone who contributes to Israel's development and advancement is fulfilling the mitzvah of settling the land. And you have a part in that with your help to the community of Kidumim. This includes all those involved in improving agriculture, building homes, paving roads, developing industry and businesses, doing academic research, beautifying the cities, cleaning the streets, and cultivating the gardens. It also includes those involved in Israel's education system, the justice system, the welfare system, the healthcare system, and the arts. All are important parts in the mitzvah of settling the land. This mitzvah is unique in imbuing all aspects of human life with value and elevating them to mitzvah status.
You know, I didn't quite understand when I first started going to Kidumim why the gardener, his name is Boaz, why the gardener was considered one of the holiest people in the community. And it took me a while to figure that out because he is literally daily involved in the Geulah.
In beautifying the land of Israel. Sure.
So that's
every Jew who lives in the land of Israel. Our rabbi also said that even if a person was to just live in Har Bracha and breathe and sleep and eat, he would be fulfilling one of the greatest commandments and securing hundreds of kilometers of the land of Israel from being given, God forbid, to an Arab state, an Arab terrorist state.
Amen.
That would, God forbid, if there's a tremendous talk about the two-state solution. I'm sure you've heard about that.
Ad nauseum.
If there was ever, God forbid, a two-state solution and the Arabs were sitting in the heart of the land of Israel, because if you look at the map of Israel, you see Judea and Samaria is right in the center. And so close to Netanya, at one point, Tulkarem, the city of Tulkarem, is 9 kilometers.
Kfar Saba, it's 1 kilometer from the...
One kilometer from Kfar Saba. And what happened in Gaza would be on steroids, God forbid.
Yeah.
So it's so important for us to settle Judea and Samaria and to do whatever we can to strengthen and secure our communities within Judea and Samaria and to attract more people, continue building. Unfortunately, after the massacre on Simchat Torah, we used to use Arab labor to build our buildings. We didn't have a choice because there's not enough Jewish labor.
Yeah.
So we would guard them very carefully, and we checked them before they came into the community. We checked them after when they left. But that all stopped. That all came to a stop on the Simchat Torah massacre. Mm-hmm. And now this is a big secret, please don't tell anybody, President Biden, we're bringing in workers from India, from China, and they're going to be the ones who are continuing the construction now.
Really?
And yes, and we have to continue building. That's our biggest commandment, is to continue building the land of Israel.
You know, there's a strong, powerful movement among Indian Christians and Pakistani Christians for supporting Israel. Very, very strong support among Christians for Israel in those two places. Mm-hmm. It's amazing. I work with a pastor who recently had to flee from Pakistan because his family's existence was at stake, and he loves Israel. I mean, he refused to put down his shofar and to remove his menorah. And when he left Pakistan to go to Thailand, where he's now hiding, he walked through the airport boldly with his shofar, headed to Thailand. Wonderful. I got one more question for you.
One more point.
Yeah.
Like my father said before, the Arabs are not working in our communities. So the first people to suffer from the terror, it's the Arabs.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah, we ought to work to convert all the Arabs to Christianity so that you have Christian workers in your community. How's that?
they're welcome always.
Yes, sure, sure.
So I got one more question for you, and this is sort of more archaeological and historic. The altar that's there between Gerizim and Ebal, we believe
On
it's
Mount
Joshua's
Ebal.
on Ebal.
Joshua, my
altar.
son.
Yeah. So what is the Israeli antiquities? What are they doing to begin to acknowledge and preserve and make it more of a official site?
It's unfortunate that they're not doing enough.
Yeah.
That's for sure. On that mountain, on Mount Ebal, which is adjacent to Mount Gerizim, Har Bracha, where I live, and down below in the valley is the city of Shechem, what the Arabs call Nablus.
Right.
On the top of Mount Ebal, the archaeological finds have found the altar of Joshua, but unfortunately Arabs have destroyed parts of it, and they're planning on building houses and buildings there, and unfortunately the government isn't doing enough. The antiquity, part of the government, I'll just give you an example. I used to be able to go down into the city of Shechem, into Joseph's tomb, which is located in Shechem, at midnight to pray by myself without a gun.
Right.
But of course now we have peace, right? The Oslo peace. And if a Jew tried to enter Shechem today, he wouldn't come out alive.
Okay.
So even though under the Oslo Peace Accords, we are allowed to go into Joseph's tomb and all of the holy sites, but it doesn't happen. It happens maybe once a month, and only after midnight with a lot of army going in together to bring in a couple of... Yeah. And I personally have said, I've taken like a vow that I will not go back to Joseph's tomb until I can go in not as somebody who stole the place, because it's ours. God gave it to us. Yeah. And I don't want to go in as what we call a ganaf, a stealer, in the middle of the night, something. So...
Well, Jonathan and Josh, I appreciate you guys coming and you being willing to sit here and share your experiences in Gaza. Tremendous, knowing what you've been through, to be able to talk about this and be comfortable about it. So I thank you both for coming on.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
And we pray that God will continue, Hashem will continue to guide you and bless you.
Amen.
All the way back to Har Bracha and back to where's your place?
It's called Yeshivat Har Bracha. It's near Shiloh.
Yeah.
He's following in his father's footsteps. I was the 13th family in Har Bracha. Now we say 450. My son Yehoshua is one of the founders of this new community.
Not founder, but
okay.
From the beginning. It's a small community.
Yeah.
It's a small community.
So he's building his house there.
Yeah.
And fulfilling the tremendous
Shiloh is a special place.
Yes.
Very special place.
Wonderful.
Right across the road from Shiloh.
It's across the road.
Okay.
It's called Yeshivat Har Bracha. It's a small community, currently with something like 100 families.
That's wonderful.
Nice place, yeah.
Well, thank you for coming and thank you for your willingness to share with us. We enjoyed having you, and we believe that God's going to continue this great work of the Geulah. This is the Gadol Geulah.
Right.
And God's going to succeed, and the people of Israel will be the people that God has called you to be.
Bezrat Hashem. Please God.
That's our program. If this topic has raised questions in your thinking, you are at liberty to share them with us. You can do that easiest by emailing us at voice@buildupzion.org. Again, that's voice@buildupzion.org. Until next week, shalom.